touchdown when the score was 24-3 thanks to Fox. Rudy Carpenter now on the right to a guest line. So, what you think? Give us your take, Rudy, on Kyler and his performance yesterday. Near perfect.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest with you, I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Probably the only way to describe it. I'm happy for Kyler because a lot of people, including myself, have maybe been down on him a little bit or have maybe questioned how good he really is. I mean, I think for me, I've more questioned how good this roster really is. But I think yesterday Kyler showed that he's when he's on and when he plays like that, he's a top 5, top 10 player in the NFL. And there's a reason why a couple years ago, the first half of the season, he was the leading candidate for the MVP award, right? Kyler has shown us, the fan base here in Arizona, that, when he's playing and playing well, he's one of the very best young players in the NFL.
Rudy, one of the things that stood out for me watching him yesterday, and we always preach about when the quarterbacks move, keep your eyes up, try to find somebody down the field before you run. That's hard for a guy like a Kyler Murray, somebody's got a lot of talent. It took Michael Vick a while. I don't know if he ever actually got it. But the throws, keeping his eyes up the field, on the bootleg, eyes up the field to Harrison for the 1 touchdown. But the one thing that kind of showed he's really growing at the position was the scramble. He scrambled left, scramble drill. Harrison was coming back to the outside. Then he went back up the field, recognized the scramble drill, and he saw him, that being Murray, throw the ball down the field instead of taking off down the left sideline.
Well, I mean, yeah, in my viewpoint, I've always actually felt like Kyler's done a good job of keeping his eyes up and trying to make throws while scrambling or while running around. I mean, what I would call it is remaining a passer. I think that Kyler throughout his career, even in college, has always done a good job of remaining a passer while he's moving around and running around. Where I personally think that he's struggled throughout his career is when he's running around or when he's scrambling and he's trying to make a play, is his ability that, like, he just never gives up on a play. And because of that, he's reluctant to throw the ball away. He's reluctant just to get what he can and get down. And because he's trying to play hero ball on every single play, a lot of times he ends up taking negative plays and he ends up taking big, big losses on negative plays. And that puts you, behind the chains and in really bad situations. And I think, the last couple of years, he's been, honestly really bad at that. I think so far this season, he's shown that he's, done a better job of making good decisions with the football in his hands, knowing when to throw the ball away, knowing when to get down, knowing when the play is probably over, and just, living to fight another day. I think, that in his maturation in that process is, number one, I think it's, self-preserving. He's not going to take as many hits, but I also think that every off season, he's probably gone back and done an off season study and realized, like, man, took this sack when I didn't need to, took this sack when I didn't need to, didn't throw the ball away here when I should have, knocked us out of field goal range. And I'm sure the coaching staff has really helped him when doing those self-scouts and self-evaluations.
And when you watch Marvin Harrison Jr., Rudy, you've worked with a lot of receivers, your quarterbacks. What do you see in this young man? I mean, the hands, the routes, all the above. But in particular, what are you seeing that maybe the average fan's probably not seeing?
Well, I think all of it, right? I mean, they call him Maserati Marv. I mean, look, he's got freakish abilities. He can run, he can jump. He does great in 50-50 situations. He's tall. I mean, he's like, in my viewpoint, a unicorn when it comes to a wide receiver, which is why he was picked where he was picked. But I think the thing that separates him is just the fact that grew up in a household with a Hall of Fame dad. Yeah. Not only was his dad a great player and a great wide receiver, but his dad was very smart. His dad played with one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL ever, in Peyton Manning. And so I just think all of the things that he's learned while growing up in his career from his dad as far as route running and recognizing coverage and be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. Just all of those little things, the nuance of the position that most rookies, I think, take a long time to get. He comes into the league already understanding a lot of that. And so, and I also think too, just his accountability and the fact that in my viewpoint so far, he doesn't seem like a huge prima donna. I mean, you heard him talk yesterday, like, man, I really hate that Kyler's, only 4 incompletions were balls that were thrown to me, which just shows you his competitiveness and expectation that, he believes he should catch the ball every single time it's thrown to him. So I don't know. For me, I just think that he's a really good player, and I think so far has done a really good job of, keeping the noise, around him at bay.
Rudy Carpenter is our guest on
3.
the Right Toyota guest line. Rudy, I get the reaction by fans right now that they just destroyed a MASH unit, which was disguised as the Los Angeles Rams, and rightfully so. That's exactly what you should do to a team that has lost half of their personnel. So does the real test come next week when they play against a team that defensively should be able to put a lot more pressure on Kyler Murray? Will we get a much better read on the Cardinals next week?
Well, I mean, probably. I mean, at the end of the day, though, they can only play the teams that are on their schedule, right? And in the first week, they played who was on their schedule in the Buffalo Bills. Yesterday, they played who was on their schedule in the Los Angeles Rams, and that's just who was on their schedule. I think the Bills are obviously a very good football team. We saw, what the Cardinals did on the road against them in week 1. They come back against a team with a lot of injuries.
2.
The Rams. To answer your question, yeah, we'll probably get a better read. When they're playing a team that they're going to play next week, we'll probably get a better read. But at the end of the day, this is the NFL. All of these teams in the NFL have good players. In my viewpoint so far, I think this team has actually played better, in my viewpoint, than what their roster and what their talent level is. I think the Bills are going to be a very good football team this year. They played them hard. They played them well. They beat the Rams yesterday. I get the circumstances, but, me personally, I try to reserve judgment on football teams, whether it's college or the NFL, until, week 4, week 5, because then you really, really know who these teams are.
Real quick, Rudy, how about those Devils? 3-0. You got to be happy about that. They came back from a big deficit the other night, and they're really
1.
showing a lot of character.
Not only that, but I mean, I think people hear Arizona State versus Texas State, and they just assume that that's a football game Arizona State should win just based on the name recognition. Mm-hmm. People don't realize that Texas State is a very, 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 very good football program. In my viewpoint, they have one of the best young coaches in college football in G.J. Kinn. He's done a great job. But I think more so, Kenny Dillingham has done a great job with this football team and coaching this football team. And I think Kenny's got this team trending in the right direction. And I think the fan base should be happy about Kenny. I just think that Kenny does a good job coaching the team, motivating the team, getting on the team. But I also think he does a good job just in the media and how he interacts with the fan base, interacts with the media, and how he does things his own way. I think it's been refreshing for the program.
No question. Rudy, thanks for the time as always on a Monday. We appreciate you, man. Thank you.
See you guys.
That's Rudy Carpenter joining us. Brought to you by All City Towing. Join the team at the largest towing company in the state. That's All City Towing. They're hiring dispatchers, call takers, lot attendants, drivers, customer service. It's all there. Great benefits, healthy 401k employer match, great employer paid life insurance, monthly fuel allowance. So if you're ready to take your career to the next level, visit them online at allcitytowing.com. That's All City Towing, where your future is on the move. We'll continue next with more Rock'em and News with Jimmy B from Casino, Arizona. Get ready for tonight's foul.